Okay, last time we were discussing about this question. You were supposed to do it. Uh, have you people done this exercise, PA 12? Please kindly respond, not via messages. You just have to unmute yourself and speak.
जी सर कर लिया
कर लिया था
जी सर
इशू तो नहीं?
जी सर कर दिया सर।
सर लास्ट एंट्री में थोड़ा सा था का अगर आप एच वाले का कर ली थी लेकिन कंफर्म
मैं इसको डिस्कस कर लेता हूँ so that you don't face any problems. Just in case if you have done it, so it will be verified whether you have done it right or wrong.
ठीक है थैंक यू
Okay, starting with the first transaction, which is basically seen for you had the following transactions in the first week of business. So first transaction was Jessica Johansson started scene for you as a best business by contributing 20,000 and receiving stock in it. So she contributed 20,000 and received stock in exchange. So बिजनेस के पर्सपेक्टिव से अगर हम बात करें तो वी रिसीव्ड बेसिकली कैश डेबिट 20,000, राइट, एंड देन ओनर्स इन कैपिटल इस केस में वी कैन स्पेसिफिकली राइट स्टॉक्स, राइट. तो uh, so next transaction was paid 2250 to cover the first 3 months rent. So it's a prepaid rent once again. 2250 debit and cash since he paid it, so cash would be credited. So prepaid rent debit, cash credit by 2250. Purchased $500 of sieving appliances. She paid cash for the purchase. So sieving machine, supplies, sorry. Sieving supplies debit 500 and cash credit 500. Next transaction is basically purchased a sieving machine for 1500, paying 200 cash and signing a note for the balance. So now sieving machine debit 1500, it's an asset. So you are paying 200 in cash, so cash should be credited by 200, and then 1300 remaining is basically note payable. So whenever we have signing a note, this means it's not account payable, it's note payable. So it's a note which you have written. It's a basically agreement that you'll be paying remaining amount in certain time period. So that is why it is called note or notes payable. So next transaction is finish the job for customer earning 180. The customer paid cash. So you received cash, so cash debit, right? And your sales revenue, or in this case, obviously it's a sieving business, so it could be service revenue, credit 180, cash debit, and service revenue credit. The next transaction is received 500 down payment to make a wedding dress. So he received advance payment. So he has not provided services for it. So cash debit 500, and what would be credited here? Unearned service revenue. So unearned service revenue will be credited by 500. So this would be transaction F. Transaction G is received an electric bill of 125, which is due to be paid in 3 weeks. So which means he has not paid it. So this is still payable. So electricity bill expense 125 debit and electricity bill payable 125 credit. So this would be your transaction G. And the last transaction is completed an alerting job, sorry, altering job for $45. The customer asked to be billed. So that means he has not received the payment for this job. So this would be account receivable 45 and credit would be service revenue 45. Prepare the necessary journal entries to record these transactions. If an entry is not required for any of these transactions, state this and explain why. So कोई ऐसी transaction नहीं थी which needed explanation. Every transaction was recorded. Any queries?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Here then, once you have recorded all the transactions, you have to post them into T accounts as well. क्या आप लोगों ने ये भी काम किया है टी अकाउंट्स में भी उसे पोस्ट किया था
जी सर.
जी सर किया था जी.
ओके गुड हो गया so we'll be taking this next question which is PA13 in today's consideration and then we'll be recording and posting journal entries now today we'll move on to the next phase journal entries T accounts and then the next phase is basically trial balance so we'll try and prepare trial balance today as well. Okay, your first transaction here is basically following transactions occurred in first 2 weeks for the George Hoskin who started Hoskin hauling. So George Hoskin contributed cash of 12,000, so it's his owner equity, and a truck worth 10,000 to start the business. This 10,000 is also its owner equity. Return may he obtained common stock. Okay. The next is pay 2 months rent in advance, which is 800. Uh, Next transaction is agreed to do a hauling job for price 1200. So 1200 price agree किया है. So nothing has happened in this transaction. Please keep this in mind. Agreed to do a hauling job for a price of 1200. So we have agreed to do a job. The next transaction is perform the hauling job discussed in C. We will get paid later. So in D, we are doing the transaction of C basically, but we are not being paid. So we'll be receiving its payment later on. So this would be our account receivable. And then next transaction is received payment of $600 on the hauling job done in D. So in next transaction, we are receiving actually half of account receivables, right? 1200 का 600 हम receive कर रहे हैं. And then purchased gasoline on credit, $50. So this would be your account payable, and you'll be receiving gasoline basically for truck usage. Performed another hauling job, earned 750, was paid cash. So here you record the transactions in T accounts, label each entry with the appropriate letter, total the T account with when you are done. Okay. So हमने इसका trial balance भी बनाना है. So okay, now we move on to the practical aspect. Notebook. Okay. So our transactions are labeled here as A, B, C, D. So first transaction is 12,000 cash, 10,000 truck. So how do you record it? First transaction is basically cash debit. Cash debit of how much? 12,000. and 10,000 truck. So 12,000 truck and you received common stock of 22. So this is your debit, this is your credit, and this is your right. This is your first transaction numbered as A. So your transaction B is pay 2 months rent in advance, which is 800. So this will be prepaid rent, which is 800. So cash would be 800. So this would be your transaction number B. Then you have transaction number C, which is agreed to do a hauling job for price of 1200. It's just an agreement, so will not be recorded. It is just moving on to transaction D, which is basically perform the hauling job discussed in C, we will get paid later. So perform the hauling job. So it's basically your account receivable, 100 debit, and your service revenue, right? So moving on to your transaction E, which is receive payment of 600 on the hauling job done in D. So this would be cash debit 600 and your account receivable 600 will be decreased. Okay, your next transaction is purchased gasoline on credit $50, which is F basically gasoline on credit. So this would be your account payable. Okay, next transaction is performed another hauling job, earned 750 was paid cash. So this is transaction EFG, received cash, then your service revenue. So we are done with the given transactions. We are also required to compute the T accounts. So T accounts. So first T account is of cash. So this is your debit side, this is your credit side. Cash is 12,000 and it has this is come from the transaction A. Next cash is 800 credit from transaction B. Uh, Nothing in C nor in D, but yeah, E debit 600. 600 E. Then you have 715G debit as well. So that is your net total is, it is the balancing amount here, 550. So this would be 12. So this would be balance brought forward or carried forward. Sorry, ECF. So this is 12550. Okay, next account is of truck. So it is only 10,000 here. Balance carried forward. Since nothing else arrived. Okay, next the account should be of common stock. Which was 22,000 credit side. $22,000. So now you're done with the transaction A completely. So from transaction B, you have forgot to write their codes. Truck was from transaction A. Common stock is also from transaction A. So now you have prepaid rent of 800. From transaction B, basically. There's nothing from transaction C, so you have now account receivable, which shows 1200 in debit. So this is transaction B, and then 600 in credit on transaction E. So your net balance is 600, should be carried forward. Okay, next account title is service revenue from transaction B, which is 1200 credit side from transaction B. Then transaction G has also 750 on the credit side. So your is 1950. So this 1950 is your service revenue. So where were we? In transaction D. E is also done. So now we have F transaction, which is of gasoline expense and account payable. So gasoline expense is 50 debit, means E should be credited. Now we have 50 should be carried forward. So in transaction F, okay, this is your transaction F. Now your last account which is remaining is account payable, which is 50 credit debit side, which should be carried forward. Same transaction F. So we have already recorded transaction G in cash and service revenue. So we have all the accounts we need. So the next thing which we need is in today's lecture was we needed to prepare a trial balance. So typical trial balance format is you have account title, you have debit amount, you have credit, nothing else. So starting with your first account, which is cash, I'm just writing the titles for now. So typical arrangement of trial balance is that we tend to write current assets first. So we have written this cash. Truck is not a current asset, it's a long-term asset. Common stock is equity basically. So prepaid rent is your next current asset. So prepaid rent. Then account receivable is also your current asset. So this is done as well. So you don't have anything else in current assets. Now you can write long-term assets. For example, you have truck, done. There's no more long-term asset, I believe. So you have your current assets, your fixed assets or long-term assets. Then you'll start from liabilities, which are current liabilities. So current liabilities are your account payable, account payable is done. Do you have any other liability? Nothing. So you have to write long-term liability. So this was your current liability. Then you have long-term liability. Since we don't have any long-term liabilities, so we'll be skipping that. Then you have owner's equity. So owner's equity, in owner's equity, you had common stock. So that's gone. What else? Common stock, you don't have anything else. So then you have revenues. So here you have revenues, service revenue. Service revenue is done. And at the end you have expenses. So you have only gasoline expense. So these are all basically part of owner's equity. So gasoline is done. So I've been deliberately ticking all the accounts so that we might have a clear picture that we have written all the names here. So starting from now, we will be bringing those amounts here. So a credit balance in T account would be transferred as here as a debit balance, and a debit balance in T accounts would be transferred here as a credit balance. It's as simple. So cash is 12,550 on the credit side, but we'll have to write it as 12,550 on the debit side. That's done, right? Then we had truck, which had credit balance of 10,000 should be written as 10,000 debit side. So that is done as well. Then you had common stock on the right side, sorry, left side balance. So it should be written as right side balance, which is 22,000 in this case. Okay, 22,000 is done. Then you have prepaid rent of 800. So it should be written as debit balance. Account receivable of 600, debit balance. Then you have service revenue of 1950. It had a debit balance. So we'll be writing it as a credit balance 1950. Then you have, that's done. That's done. Come on. So account payable is 50 on the right side. Okay, we had 50 there as account payable. Okay, what else? Service revenue, we have written 1950. Account payable and gasoline expense should be written as 50 debit. So we have all these accounts settled here. So we can easily compute balances. We need to add these. So this is 22 and 24,000. How much is this? 624,000. So your debit side and credit side is in balance. Your file balance. Okay, anybody having any query, please? Any query regarding this trial balance, please?
No, sir.
No, sir. Is it clear to everybody, please?
सर ये
जी प्लीज इस्माइल।
सर ये ट्रायल बैलेंस में अकाउंट की ये कैटेगरी लाजमी है।
हाँ, ये कैटेगरी मैंने सिर्फ समझाने के लिए की है। आप ये बेशक कैटेगरी ना लिखें,
ठीक
लेकिन बेहतर ये है कि
ठीक हो गया सर, थैंक यू।
सीक्वेंस में लिखेंगे तो हम अगली जो स्टेजेस है ना अकाउंटिंग साइकिल की, वो बड़े आराम से कर लेंगे।
जी सर,
ठीक है।
थैंक यू सर।
Yes, any more questions, please? Okay, fine then. Okay, you have access to this question. You can easily see this question PA16. So I'm giving you 10 minutes to do all these journal entries, T counts, and then move them on to trial balances. So you have 10 minutes to carry out these 5 transactions until trial balance. Recording time is also ending, so I'll be restarting. Please rejoin in. ठीक हो गया?
Okay, sir.